that what they said?
I think Angela's covering up. I probably said something
Could be,
disparaging about Shrewsbury or something like that.
okay, we're gonna call the February 20th, 29.
How about November?
November.
Sorry, I'm jumping ahead. November 20th, 2019. Okay. Lake Commission meeting to order. Thank you for coming. And first order of business, I want to, did everyone get a chance to read the minutes and questions?
Make a motion, Mr. Chair, that we accept the minutes as written.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Beautiful. Okay. Next, review of and approve bills and expenses. So, these expenses we already paid, or this is pending? I have
Pending.
$3,000 for the annual monitoring and map reporting, which we approved, in the 26-25 for the Hovey and Newton Pond weed mapping. That's, it's all
I make a
done.
motion, we accept it as presented.
Okay,
Second.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. So voted. Okay, moving on to the commissioner's report. I'll start off, and the obvious thing, and we'll cover this a little bit on the lake management plan, but we started the drawdown November 1st. It looks like we're down, our goal is to go down to 30 inches, is what our permit states, and actually it's kind of what the limit, the physical limitation on the dam. It only goes down 30 inches because the riverbed in the bottom of the lake meet kind of at that point. So it looks like it's down pretty much the whole way at this point. So that's good news, and even in light of the rain events that we keep getting. So that's worked out well. I would strongly recommend people to get their docks out if they haven't already done that. Certainly get your boats out because it's liable to get cold and it happens fast. So anyone on the south end of the pond, I hope you already have your boat out. I'm talking Flint and Flag if you're going to plan on using the Oak Island boat ramp because it's unnavigable over there with the water at this level. Actually, going under the Route 20 bridge is also a challenge at this water level. So if you are doing that, I would recommend you tow your boat or paddle it or something over there. So that's all good news. It came down without any real problems, so also good. And we'll see how that works out next spring. So we plan on getting the lake. I'm going to put this out there now. The lake we have to start putting the lake up probably towards the end of February because it needs to be up according to the permit at normal pool, which is the normal level of the lake, by April 1st. So it'll go up at that point. And with that, I'm going to pass it on to Mike Pica.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. A couple of things, Mr. Chair. Last Thursday, I took my boat out, and I'll tell you, it was a little bit precarious, and I happen to know that there's at least one individual whose boat was stuck in the mud because the lake was down quite a lot. I would agree it's going to be down around 25 to 30 inches now. Also, actually took a picture. It's a reality. I saw a bald eagle last Thursday, less than a week ago, sitting on a birch tree on the property of the DeChicos, sometimes known as the Villa Vaudreuil, on the Shrewsbury side. So the bald eagles are still around. I also noticed some of those Asian clams, those little mini clams. They're about the lake.
Any live ones? Anyone that are live?
No, they're dead. All the ones I see are little tiny open shells. Also, when I was taking my boat out going from the north to the south, from the south to the north, saw 8 swans, a group of 8 swans around Quinsigamond State Park area. So, as I typically annually see, the swans feel far more comfortable going about the the lake, and they'll go from north to south when the boat traffic's gone. It's just a phenomenon I've noticed over the course of the last few years. Other than that, for the visual inspection of the lake in terms of turbidity, with less traffic, it seems like there's a little better visibility in the water right now. And activity on the lake has pretty much come to a close relative to the cold, damp weather. There's virtually little, 98% less boat traffic than maybe 99% than 2 months ago. So, that's it, Mr. Chair.
All right, thank you. Officer Amato is not here. Captain Steele.
I have nothing to report, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Fair enough. Mr. Polito's not here. Vacant didn't show up again. Ms. Amory,
I also have nothing to report.
thank you. Yeah, the vacant didn't show up either. Bill? Mr. Murphy.
A couple of things. I attended the Regatta Point Sailing Club's annual meeting when they held it a week or so ago, because they were discussing their plans for next year and their past activities, sort of an after-action review of all their past activities. And I had contacted them, asked if I could attend, and they said, fine, if I pay for my own supper, so I did. Just a very, very brief summary. Their operation has really expanded. As you know, they bought the Worcester Community Rowing so they could get their rowing equipment joined with theirs. This past year, they have increased the rowing among youth and actually had some boats in a regatta they held. They have joined also with Webster Lake Community Sailing in a joint agreement, so that essentially the plans, as sort of I heard them, and again, this is very brief, Regatta Point will concentrate on both youth and adult, beginner, intermediate, advanced sailing, people getting their sailing certificates, and then once someone is a completely professional sailor, they can go down and use the Webster Lake boats, or if they have their own boat or want to buy one, they can keep it down in Webster Lake. So what will be going on at Regatta Point will be mostly instruction for sailing. Apparently, because, as we all know, Lake Quinsigamond's narrow, the wind has to be blowing in one direction for great sailing, which doesn't matter for instruction. Webster Lake is wide, so no matter which way the wind's blowing, you can have nice long distances to sail. They're also pushing their paddle boards, kayaks, etc., other activity, and planning on growing. Have a budget, I guess, now over $300K. And they actually, this past year, if I remember the number right, I believe they gave 135 full or partial scholarships to Worcester and other youth who couldn't afford their programs. I don't want to say anything more than that. I've also started a dialogue with the Grafton Selectmen, trying to find out, telling them what we've been doing in terms of invasive weeds, pollution monitoring, and other activities, and asking what their thoughts are on that matter and anything else they want us to consider. And I can basically say after several weeks, we're sort of at a stage, let me sort of say that at the point where I'm still asking questions and they're still saying, I'll get back to you on it. So I hope that'll continue over the next month or so this winter. Finally, third, the rowing has really stopped, the Quinsigamond Rowing Club. I talked to one group of 8 who went out early Saturday morning, and basically what they said, it was so cold we couldn't do anything. We couldn't stop rowing. We were freezing to death. So there was no chance to adjust the rigging, practice, or do anything. And not one of them told me anything about how enjoyable it was. So now that also their docks are out, I assume that was probably the end of the early morning rowing at the Quinsigamond Rowing Club till probably late in April. Those are the 3 things I wanted to mention.
Can I ask a question of
Yeah,
the Commissioner? Is there ever a time that rowers enjoy rowing?
Yes.
Oh,
Let me, one simple, personally, I think about a week after Labor Day, when most of the motorboats are gone, so you don't have the wake problems, the last half of September, the first half of October, on a weekday, if you're retired like me, so you don't have to work, wait till 7:30, 8 o'clock to go out. On a perfectly calm day, you have the whole lake to yourself. You can row down one side, back. The rush hour traffic on the Burns Bridge and the 290 bridge is gone. The school bus has gone away. It's quiet and peaceful. You can only hear a few birds. It's very pleasant to just scull down one side and back the other side.
Just you and the bald eagles then.
Yes, except I haven't seen them lately. I guess we have a different schedule. They probably aren't up yet.
That's because you paced them backwards.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, can I ask a question?
Sure.
Directed to you, Amanda, if you have any information on this, but I noticed that on the Worcester side, the property previously referred to as Frank Potenti's Four Season Restaurant,
249.
there's a bunch of hay bales and I believe fencing on the water line, and there's cyclone fencing on the street, 439?
249.
249 Lake Ave. Do you know of any particular project that's approached the Worcester Concom in terms of development of that property?
I don't have any information in my head. I
Okay.
can get back to you
Okay.
with that information. As
Just
soon as-
curious.
I'll put in a
I
phone
think
call.
you may have actually mentioned it last month or the month before about a project that may have went, that's going on.
It was the
But-
month
but the
before.
project-
Duplexes or something?
But the, the proponent actually lives next door in the big mansion there. Bought the Four Seasons and the two structures there, they're tearing all that stuff down. At this point right now, they only have permission to put up one building, one structure, which they're gonna do. And then, it'll probably end up being four structures, and I believe they're gonna be condos.
Oh.
That's my understanding, so, that's what's going on there. So I think in the long run, it'll be an improvement, because those, most of those structures look like they're gonna fall over. And, they're right on top of the bank, and that's where the.
Is
that's
this
where
the
booms are.
property where you had the 5 buildings, the four along the
Yeah, it's the old
edge
Four
and then
Seasons
one in the
restaurant.
front,
Yeah,
next door to the Four Seasons?
yes.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah, I don't know what the current status is on that, but
Okay.
yeah.
Just curious, because.
I think they gotta go
Looks like
ahead
they,
to do one.
It looks like they're fixing to do something.
they came before the commission, maybe 3 meetings ago, and we were very back and forth with them about what their plans were and how they were gonna manage excavations and cleaning up the property without, impacting the riverfront or the waterfront,
Thank you.
so.
I wonder how much those condos are gonna cost.
I'm sure, because, you're retired now, you're gonna.
I may be interested in something like that. I wanna stay involved with the lake commission and the lake when I leave, you
There's a
know.
vacancy.
There'll be- In fact, that's a good idea, that's a good idea, there's a list of vacancy in there.
I prefer to operate from a position of power while I'm on this
You
commission.
have more power doing that. Okay, so we're.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. And moving on to the rest of the agenda, here's an update on the lake management plan. So, we talked about the drawdown, that's going good. It looks like from the reports that I've received so far that the weed treatment, the chemical weed treatment actually worked out pretty well on Lake Quinsigamond, in that there's a chance we won't have to treat, we'll have to do less treatment than we did this year, next year, in the areas that we treated. So that's good news, because it means we kind of are getting ahead of some of it. That said, there's still a big area of places where we haven't treated and can't treat because of, the concern about the habitat. So what the mission is over the winter is to go back to the folks at Natural Heritage and see if we can develop some kind of plan that would allow us to sample treat in those areas and not, and see if we can, that'll affect the endangered plant species. Well, there's 2 prongs to that. One, we're gonna go and find out that that actually is what they think it is, but also to be able to kind of start some test treating there. So that's what's gonna happen there. So good news is, the stuff we did treat, It was effective, and it looks like we probably won't have to treat as much in those areas. And the other good news or positive or progressive news is that we're gonna move forward on trying to treat in the areas that we didn't treat in. So that's that part of it with Lake Quinsigamond. So all that worked out really well. The other thing is that we will want to treat, because of the chemical we're gonna use next year, we're gonna wanna treat earlier in the season. So probably do it sometime in the late May, early June, into the beginning of July timeframe. That's where we're gonna go after those kind of things. And probably for the sacred lotus, because it still keeps popping up, we'll probably do that a little bit later. But the milfoil and the fanwort, we're gonna go after a little bit earlier this year. So that'll be good. And an update on Newton Pond. We got preliminary budget numbers to treat Newton Pond. And as we talked about last time, Newton Pond has a healthy crop of milfoil and fanwort in the pond. So the recommendation we're looking at from the scientists is to do a combination of a drawdown and some chemical treatment. If, we're hoping that the chemical treatment will be as successful as what we had in Lake Quinsigamond this past year. So that would work out fine. But right now, we're at the very beginning stages of that. So the budget really, that I can talk about tonight is more about, on the chemical side, it's more about getting the permitting done. And that's gonna be about $97.50 is what they have for a ballpark figure of the budget number there. So almost $10,000 for the chemical treatment. And there's two ways we can approach this. One way is that we can combine both permitting processes, or we can do them separately. If you do it separately with the drawdown, because the drawdown is much more involved, you have to do, and I'm gonna mess up the pronunciation of this word, hydrologic studies, and both on Newton Pond and Indian Head Pond and Mud Pond and all the ponds downstream to get to Lake Quinsigamond. When you get to Lake Quinsigamond, it really doesn't matter because we're drawing down anyway. So, but they're going to want to look at that. That's one thing. And the other thing that is going to, which takes longer, is that the Fish and Wildlife is going to want to weigh in on this because, the drawdown can affect the habitat for any holdover species of fish in the pond. I think the consensus is, on the other side, is that pond is so choked with weeds right now that there isn't any holdover fish in there, and they can't survive in that environment anyway. So, and that said, the drawdown and any kind of weed treatment we do may actually improve the habitat for that kind of wildlife. So that'll be a good thing if it happens. But the bad news is you still have to go through that process, and that takes a little bit longer time. So one of the reasons I was reluctant to say we should combine those efforts is that it would cause you not to be able to do a chemical treatment of Newton Pond this year, probably, because it's unlikely that we're gonna be able to get through the permit process for the drawdown part of it by the June-May timeframe that we wanna hit. But on the other side of that, if we do it at the same time, and, because we're gonna do the drawdown permit process anyway, if we combine the two permit process, and when I say combine the two, where the money saving comes in is the notifications, the con meetings. We can get it all done in one shot, so we're not going twice. And anytime we do that, if we go twice, we're paying someone to go there and do this, and we're paying them good money to go there and take care of that stuff for us, because you don't want, me in there testifying about, weed treatment if they ask me anything more complicated than how far is the water going down. So, that's where we are. So, and it's about an $8,000 savings if we combine it. So it's not nothing. And, but, it's likely that, it's not impossible that we get the permits in time, but it's not likely probably that that'll happen that quick. So, so that would be the choice, is to, pay a little bit less money and forego the chemical treatment this year, but still do the drawdown, or hopefully get the permits by the time we need to do the drawdown. and that should give us plenty of time. Or we do the process separately, and, you know, it's pretty good chance we can get them through the permit process for the chemical treatment, do the chemical treatment, which will be an additional charge, and move forward from that. But the study for the drawdown is gonna be close to $20,000 or so, if we do it independently. So that's where it is. The good news about drawdowns are, though, once you have the permits in place, it's really inexpensive. It's basically, the town's gonna send someone down there, they're gonna take the stop logs off, they're gonna start that process on November 1st. They're gonna continue until the pond goes down 30 inches probably, or as far as we can get, it's close to that. And that'll be it. So there won't be any expensive, you know, chemical treatments and applications and stuff like that after we get the permitting product done. You know, drawdowns don't come without challenges. You know, the thing you have to, and this has happened at Indian Lake, is that, you know, once the invasive weeds succumb to the treatments that you're doing, especially in a drawdown, if they freeze and it's, you know, they're gonna start to decay pretty much right away after they get either frozen or ripped out by the ice. However, that the nutrients inside of them unlikely won't be released until the water goes back up again. And because the invasives have been eliminated or stunted, then, you know, that nutrient is available to feed the growth of, you know, cyanobacteria and algae in the pond. So, you know, it's something you have to monitor and keep a close eye on. Quinsigamond, it doesn't seem to really affect us that much because I think the water's so deep. When you have a shallower, you know, body like Newton Pond, that's something we really have to keep an eye on. And I know that they're facing those issues a little bit in Indian Lake. So that's the brunt or the summary of it, I guess. The other part is that, you know, I've forwarded all this information to the town manager, and, because he requested that we come up with a budget so that he'll be able to allocate the money or see what he can do, I guess, to get on that. You know, so we're still working on that part of it, is how we're gonna fund it. Okay? Any questions on, questions or comments? Did I put everyone to sleep?
The first time I'm curious about this, when we kill all the weeds,
Yeah.
it creates extra nutrients, so then we get algae?
Well, the plants, yeah, the decaying plants will create nutrients, it's like compost.
Oh, okay, that's where okay, I thought we already had X number of nutrients, and they got used up by the weeds growing. Okay, I understand what you're saying now, the
Right.
dead.
I'm not trying
weeds
to throw a scare out there, I'm just saying that
Well,
that's
I
one of
was
the challenges
curious
you gotta
about what
keep.
caused the trouble at Indian Lake, and I'm wondering
And I'm
if
probably
that's what it
talking, like,
was.
you know, out of my hack, I see Jack and Barbara, the two people that knows what they're talking about, commenting on it. You guys have any?
I would tend to believe Jackie before I believe you, but.
Me too, me too. So I'm behind you on that one, Roger. So if you guys have any comments or input or, you're just shaking your head.
We'll talk to you later.
Yeah, we'll talk to you later.
All right, so, but feel free to, I don't care, you can make me look like I don't know what I'm talking about,
next.
because I probably know.
And next.
Oh, that's right, coming up next. So, for us, that's about it in lake management. In terms of the plant base, again, another thing we're gonna try to get accomplished over the off-season here is to you know, try to shore up our law enforcement and safety concerns on the lake, to a degree much higher than they are now. I mean, it's the one thing that was disappointing to me this season was the amount of the patrols and coverage on the lake. And I still don't understand, I probably said this before, is that, you know, when you're talking about someone, they'll actually take someone off if they're missing someone on the road. Worcester, I understand, because it's environment, situation up there, but, you know, on the Shrewsbury side, I can't think of any place in the town that's busier than Lake Quinsigamond on Sunday afternoon. And busier and more dangerous than Lake Quinsigamond on a Sunday afternoon. So, I think that, you know, we really need to focus on having more law enforcement there, and we need to, I don't know if it's a funding issue or what it is, but we'll discuss that and see what we can do to make that better, and I don't think we had as many patrols by the environmental police this year, no? Can anyone speak to that?
That's probably correct,
Yeah.
because you lost your major.
Yeah, I know, we lost our local guy. So, we gotta get a new local guy. So that's, maybe he can go on retirement and go to work for the
That's probably not going to
environmental
happen.
police. Just a thought, Ron, okay, consultant. So that's the other part. So, moving on, update from Jacqueline Burmeister.
Good evening, my name is Jacqueline Burmeister from the City of Worcester Department of Public Works and Parks, the Lakes and Ponds Program. So I have pretty much finished my sampling in all the shallow lakes and ponds in Worcester, besides Lake Quinsigamond, which is special because it is so deep. Because of that, I've been continuing to go out to measure what is a phenomenon that is known as lake turnover. And so this is because there is a difference in temperature on the water on the top of the lake, on the surface of the lake versus the deeper water. And as it gets colder, the environment cools down, or the water loses heat, and it becomes more dense, and it's able to mix in with that water on the bottom. And so that's something that I've been trying to measure when that's actually occurring, when this mixing of the lake is occurring this fall. There are a lot of significant there are a lot of phenomenons that accompany that lake mixing. You're allowed to bring oxygen into lower parts of the water, which allows microbial processes to happen at lower depths. It also brings nutrients up from the bottom, which allow other microorganisms to live in the upper portions of the water column that weren't able to access those nutrients before. So it has a lot of significance for lake water quality. And so I guess my big findings now is that we're close to seeing this lake turnover occur. If you look at these profiles, these graphs in the middle of the Lake Quinsigamond report, which is available up here for anyone else who wants to grab one, I went out on the 5th of November and yesterday on the 19th of November, and we're seeing that the temperature between the upper portion of the lake and the bottom portion are becoming closer. So because the as the temperature becomes colder further down in the water column, more oxygen is able to access those lower regions of the lake. And you could see between these two graphs that while the temperature profile line becomes more straight, the oxygen is able to go, even just between November 5th and November 19th, the oxygen gets from 34 feet into the water column to about 42 feet into the water column. And so we're very close to seeing oxygen reaching its maximum point into the depths of the lake. And so that will be interesting to see how far down that goes. And see what that means for how nutrients are cycling up through the water column. I also have here just the surface water temperature. Right now is about 7.3 degrees Celsius or 45 degrees Fahrenheit. The water is getting clear. Between this month and last month, we saw the transparency in the water as measured with a Secchi disc increase from, I think it was around 9 feet last month to about 11 feet. So yeah, the water column is nice and clear, and there's a lot of oxygen in the surface, about 10.27 milligrams per liter, which is very good and healthy for our fish populations. And then that oxygen, of course, as we see in the graph for 19 November, it does stay pretty high going further down into the water column. So that's good. That's a lot of habitat for our fish to live in. And then finally, the average surface total phosphorus level that was measured last on the 30th of October is slightly higher now than it was during the summer months. And again, there are many reasons why this could be occurring. It could have to do with that mixing that's happening. It could have to do with some of the rainy weather that we're seeing. So we're just continuing to collect samples and just see if we could start making some correlations to why that might be. As you might know, Lake Quinsigamond has a nutrient budget, meaning that Shrewsbury and Worcester are supposed to control how much of these nutrients get into Lake Quinsigamond, and one way to see how well we're doing that is to actually measure the phosphorus that's in the water itself. So, again, like being able to see how these cycles happen across the season is important for understanding where this phosphorus is even coming from. Is it coming from the land, or is it coming from the bottom of the lake? So, yep, and I have some nice pictures here of the drawdown in action. Coal Mine Brook is quite exposed. Any questions?
Do you do samples while there's ice on the lake, or will it be all done then?
I have not yet, but I am thinking about some strategic places to do that in order to better understand some processes and also the effect that
See how deep
something
it
like
goes.
road salting might have on Lake Quinsigamond. But if you have any ideas about something that you would want to see, that
I was
you're
just
curious
curious
about,
if you still take samples once there's ice.
I haven't yet, but maybe, yeah. Maybe sometime in the future, go out there with the auger and drill myself a little hole.
If you need someone to test the ice for you, Roger would be.
Yeah, and so I guess in other news, I'll keep you up to date on to when our next State of the Lakes is going to be. It'll probably be in February or March. That will be when we synthesize all the data that we've collected over the course of the summer at Lake Quinsigamond, as well as any projects that we're doing there in the upcoming year. We'll talk about those. And yeah, recently we had a stormwater workshop, which was well represented by Lake Quinsigamond Watershed Association, as well as some folks from Newton Pond who came out to learn a little bit about the effects of stormwater on our lakes and ponds and just the Worcester stormwater infrastructure and possible points that can be addressed by residents to improve stormwater quality. Yeah, so that's that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, John.
Yeah.
Okay, next one to discuss and act on setting fees for 2020. And by that, I think we mean dock fees.
Yes.
Same thing.
So you just went up on the dock fees last year.
Yeah.
So I think you just
So you think we should?
keep them the same. You just want to
setting
vote
that?
them in again.
Yeah. Is there anything that you think we should, excuse me,
There's another one.
one more?
I was gonna speed read it and give it to you.
So, okay, so the fees themselves, the new dock fee, the new dock permit, the plates, all that stuff. And then we need to get plates.
All right, we have to figure that out.
We have to figure that part out, so, we're out of plates. So, we're out of stickers.
We'll have them by the spring, though.
All right.
I'm confident we'll
Cool.
find somebody.
So basically, the consensus is to hold. How, I mean, what's a realistic,
I mean, if you're not getting funding from the town and the city, then you might need to look at it differently, but I think right now,
right. I mean, one of the things the town, it had said to us from the beginning with this, Shrewsbury, at least, is, basically, you need to throw in your weight too. So if we're giving you this much money, you should be also contributing this much money. So that's one of the things we have to keep an eye on. I think, I don't know, was it you, Roger did the math last time, so we had to be like $75 for a plate of,
I'm not sure. I know that the contributions from the cities and the towns now is substantial compared to when I first came on this board, it was zero.
Right, yeah,
We raised everything, mostly with dock fees.
all with doctors, well, and some contributions.
Yeah, but for the most part.
Yep.
So I'm leaning towards there's probably not a lot of need to make the dock fees go too high, but at the same time, you do have to demonstrate to the municipalities in the city that we're being responsible for the way that we get resources to assist in taking care of the lake. But as Angela said, that fees went up last year. I would be leaning towards leaving the dock fees where they were.
If I recall in our discussion last year, we basically looked at two approaches. One was, since we needed more money, a fairly large increase. The other one, which we discussed, was that, if I recall correctly, and I'm not sure because it was a year ago, we talked about increasing at a certain percentage rate for each of the following 5 years to get up to what that large increase would have been.
That was my recollection.
Yeah, so I'm suggesting we should look at what the percentage increase was for this year from last year, and probably have the same, roughly the same percentage increase for the next year, if we increase it.
Okay, and, do we have, this isn't something.
It was 20, well, if you're not going to meet again until February, I mean, we have to get everything printed and, I mean, I guess you can wait till February, but if it snows and you miss a February meeting and then it's March, that's the only thing, is you want to be able to be ready to go to send out all the applications to everybody.
No December meeting?
Or you could have a December meeting.
I miss you guys. if we
On
go too long.
Christmas.
What is Christmas?
Christmas Eve.
Christmas Eve on Wednesday? That'd be nice.
Yeah, it is, yeah, well, no, Christmas is a Wednesday, 25th.
So we'd have to meet Christmas night. It shouldn't be a problem, huh?
But back to those dock fees, I don't recall the discussion, but was that our discussion that we were gonna raise them
I think that's what it
yearly?
was, because I think that's what the figure came up, was, it's like
Right.
$75, and we didn't wanna like raise it to $75 in the first year, which I don't even know if that's, needs to be our goal, but, I just, what I wanna do is,
I think I asked how many dock fees we collected.
well, that's the other issue, because when I went by this summer, and I have a list of the people who didn't pay, and by the time we got that, it was kinda too late to do anything, but, there was a substantial number of people that did not have stickers on their.
We should probably look at that,
Yeah, especially in the south end of the lake, because they can't, no one can patrol down there. So, it's, we're not gonna do it. Why do it? And then, there was literally a condo, that all of their docks, none of them had stickers on it.
that could be a commercial dock.
It is a commercial dock, so, and there should be 2 plates on each slip. So, that's a problem. But, and literally in the area, I'm on the south side of the lake, I'm south of the Stringer Dam, and I can say from the Stringer Dam, and this is including actually Half Moon Cove, there was, I'm gonna say that at least 40% of the docks in that area did not have a valid sticker on it.
I would say, to be fair to the current dock holders that actually pay, we should try to figure out some way to get the revenue stream
Yeah,
from those people there, and then maybe look at raising it, but that seems almost unfair to have the people that are paying.
no, it's incredibly unfair, and I'm not encouraging that, by the way, if anyone's watching from home, not to pay your dock fee. But, it's not fair, and they should be paying it, and they're going to pay it.
One way,
But I don't wanna tie that to saying, well, we need to do that first, and then we can get up more, because we know even if everyone paid, we're still gonna need.
It's not gonna have enough money.
We're still gonna need to, at some point, raise the rent. I don't mind if we do like an incremental change every other year, but I think it's something we have to move forward, because that's basically what what our discussions with the communities were, that, it would be a four-way street.
to go back to the previous point, for those people, the 40% who did not get a dock and then want to do it after skipping for a couple of years, there could be some sort of attached recording fee if you had let it lapse.
Like initiation fee, kinda.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can talk about that. I think we're gonna have, based on the experiences I've heard from law enforcement who've gone out there and wrote the tickets and did all that stuff, it's discouraging in the sense that, you go to court and the judge says, well, all right, they didn't find anybody. Because, we have fines in place. Literally, it's $50 a day for the dock that doesn't have a plate, and another $50 a day if you have a boat tied to the dock that doesn't have a plate on it. So that's $100 a day. The condo, for example, had boats on the dock. So that was $100 a day for each one of those 12, it was more than 12 slips, I think there was 18. I'd be like, yeah, don't put your plate on all summer. You could fund the whole weed treatment. But yeah, we have to go out there, we have to be able to enforce it.
I recommend we create a subcommittee, maybe myself, the other police officer, and someone else from the commission, and take a look at how we would go ahead and enforce.
All right, that's a great idea.
And then we take a look, we might not end up with, kind of have a sense of the numbers that we're talking about. And the manner in which we enforce it may not be with the police, it may be a combination of the commission, maybe the watershed association, or even, I don't know, let's take a look at it and come up with something. We can reach out to some of the other water, Webster Lake, those places that may have dock fees and say how they're capturing them.
All right. Good idea.
I don't want to say that my Shrewsbury counterpart will serve on that.
You volunteering, Kyle, for?
But I certainly will, and if someone else wants to.
Thank you. All right. So we'll hold this year and move on to next year, figure it out.
So table it or keep the
Table
rates
it.
the same?
Let's,
Table it until the next meeting?
is that, you understand, you want to table till next meeting, or you just want to say, okay, we're going to keep the rates the same this year and go after the,
My sense was to keep the rates the same, but I had forgotten, and I still don't recollect what we had discussed last time, but if we discussed last time incremental increases, well, maybe we should discuss whether we're going to have that, if that's what we settled on. I just don't recall it.
Just to remind you, we had that long discussion about the 60 or so court cases, or I'm not exactly sure what to call them.
Yeah.
And essentially the judge for almost, I think, every one but one just said, oh, if you pay your fee now late, fine, there'll be no problem. And so it turned out it was a huge effort by the law enforcement for very little. And that's the reason why we decided we'd just do the same percentage each year instead of jumping up to the full amount, because it might just mean a larger number will not register their docks and boats.
what percentage did we go up last year?
I think it was 20%. It was, because it was 25 and went to 30.
Yeah, it was 25%. $5 divided by 25 is 20%.
All right, so we could either go up the percentage, or we could just keep bumping it up $5.
I don't think it's much difference between $34 and $35, so.
Yeah, we're not talking a huge amount of money, actually, for if you have a house on the lake and a dock.
Well, 20% would be
46.
Yeah, and we're talking about adding $6 or
$6.
$7. That's not gonna break anybody. Yet, if everybody pays, and that's the big problem, not everyone pays, it does provide a substantial amount of money to the Lake Commission,
Yes.
of which the
The funny part
person.
about this, most of the people that I saw that weren't paying are the places where we're treating weeds.
Yeah, and so for that $6 or
It's actually the place where we're
$7,
spending the money.
that extra $6 or $7, they're getting
Yeah.
more than their money's worth.
Okay.
And a lot of it might be oversight, they do plan on buying it, paying, they don't.
And in their defense, because you could go to these guys and for the, just to give an example, 'cause I was shocked when I saw that the docks at the condo weren't updated, but they could have bought all those stickers, had them on there, just never put them on the dock. I mean, the rule is specific that it has to be displayed on the dock. It's not, did you buy a sticker? It should be on the dock, but I'm not gonna go after anyone that bought the thing and didn't stick the sticker on there. I mean, that's stupid, but yeah, we still need to investigate. We still need to make sure that the people that are supposed to be paying are paying. I can guarantee you, some docks didn't even have plates at all. So, and they had boats on them. You know, and there were some docks that were in disrepair. So, we need to figure that out. And also in Worcester, Amanda, and I don't know if this is something that falls under the Conservation Commission, but there's a boat on the Worcester side that's sunk. It's on North Lake Ave, and I don't have the number, but I will get that to you. It's basically been in there for a couple of years. This thing is just sitting, basically filled up 3/4 of the way, almost halfway with water, just sitting on the shoreline. So, it's gotta violate some conservation rule.
Chair, just a question. Is
Sure.
this just a boat hull, or is there a motor involved? Because with a
No,
motor.
this is just a boat hull at
Okay.
this point. Unless the motor rotted out, fell off the back and has like 80 feet down. It's a deep part of the lake. Hopefully that didn't happen. So, we should probably get that thing out of there too. All right, so, to go up $5, or what do you want to go up, do you want to just stick with the percentage?
I think you have to do a percentage because you have the application fee, the plate fee, the sticker fee, commercial docks.
Yeah, percentage is
You
consistent,
can
as you're
just-
saying.
Okay. We're gonna keep it at 20%.
Again, that's consistent what we did last year, so.
All right. Any other comments?
Someone needs to make a motion and second it, and then we can maybe vote on it if there's no further discussion, Mr. Chair.
All right. Do I have a motion? No one wants to make a motion?
I support a motion of a $5 increase. I like the idea of your numbers and percentages and stuff. I don't like the idea of $36.50 and $37.90, and I think it's easy to go $35 for the thing, $45 for the renewal, $95 for commercial dock fee. I'm just not comfortable with
All right.
$97.50, you know.
I certainly am, valid point for rounding, because I agree, talking sense is just making it
Easy to
difficult.
remember, too, what the fees
I
are.
think it's gonna be easier for you guys too, right?
Yep.
Yep, in the accounting department. All right,
Is that a motion, Captain Steele?
I said I would support the motion, but I'll turn it into a motion. I make the motion that the fees go across the board $5.
an increase of $5.
Yeah.
Including for the commercial?
Yeah.
Yeah, all right. Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
I see some reluctance here on,
So, I got aye.
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 All right. Reluctantly unanimous. All right.
Getting the phone calls tomorrow.
I know at least one I'm gonna get. So, all right, so voted. One phone call and good talking to you right after the meeting.
well, if we discussed this last year, this is no surprise, right?
All right.
I may be missing something, I don't know.
So discussion of, I'm gonna definitely send you the link to the past meeting so you can, because you're gonna be away, you're gonna miss us, you can
I am.
watch this from your computer in North Carolina,
I am.
it's beautiful. Okay.
Concerned I was gonna put a dock in, I'm not so sure now.
When your condo gets built, you'll be all set.
Okay.
Okay, so, discussion on rules for Lake Quinsigamond. So unfortunately, I don't have much to say about that, much of an update from last month. So that's, again, something we'll probably work on over the course of the off-season, and try to come up with the changes that we need to, bolster the ones we need to up, and we'll, you know, bring it back in February and discuss it. But, you know, anything we do there is gonna require a hearing. We got a lot of good feedback from the meetings that we did have with people, so I think we know what we, kind of the direction we wanna go in. And, an update from the Lake Quinsigamond Watershed Association. Tucker? Good to see you.
Good to see you all.
Thanks.
Just introduce yourself.
Hi, everyone. I'm Tucker Beckett. I'm the Water Quality Monitoring Coordinator for the Watershed Association. I'm here with an update on our bacteria monitoring activities. So, between July and the end of September, we did a weekly bacteria sample processed at the Worcester Water Filtration Plant. The results are on these reports right here. Notably, there were consistently levels consistently exceeding the threshold at the Belmont Street outflow, as well as at Regatta Point. The threshold was also exceeded at Tillys Brook and Billings Brook on several occasions. A couple data points had to be censored due to quality assurance issues. And in the end, we got back many imprecise results. And we compared our data with the data that Department of Conservation and Recreation collected for Lake Park and Regatta Point. And they were sampling for Enterococci, while we were sampling for E. coli. But we found very little correlation between the two results.
And was one higher than the other?
Regatta Point was generally higher than the other.
Okay, that was a good answer to it. Was one, I asked the question the wrong way. Was one method resulting in higher results than the other method?
Well, the thresholds are different for each
Right.
for each type of bacteria. I couldn't speak as to which one is.
Well, I mean, but
Severe.
in terms of the level of, would one method cause a closing of the beach versus another method whose level did not get to that point?
If I remember correctly, it was
Scale to what.
It alternated back and forth. There were some days where our methods would have led to a closure of the beach, whereas but theirs wouldn't have, and vice
Yeah.
versa. I
You
kind of went.
measured at the beach?
Yeah, we
Do you
measured
have
at
any
the
idea
beach.
where DCR measured?
I watched them measure at Regatta Point one day, and they went a little bit further out in the swim area. They were like far out at the edge of the line, whereas I was
The
sampling
line
more
north
towards the middle.
Or the edge of the line towards the middle?
Towards the middle,
Okay, but they were on the beach? They were
Yes.
At the beach?
at the beach, within the swim area.
Okay, good, all right. So we were basically in the same neck of the woods.
I imagine they did it the same way at Lake Park, but I can't guarantee that.
Question?
Yeah.
Where it says 2 data points censored, if I'm reading the pink color right, is that 2 data points or all the data points on 2 dates?
2 sampling days.
And can you give a reason, or is the reason censored as well?
It was we got some data that the quality assurance duplicates that we sent to the lab didn't match up with what they were supposed to be a duplicate of. The difference is very large, so we censored the data point
Okay.
because we didn't trust the quality.
I have a question for, and if you can answer this, Tucker, that'd be great. I'm gonna also throw this out to Jacqueline and Barbara. Do you know where Jordan Pond outflows into Quinsigamond, or does it outflow into Quinsigamond?
Yeah,
Yes.
See it.
Right, well, I see the line stopped. So does it go underground after that?
It goes underground there.
Where's that come out? Does it come out near, I'm looking at the level up and down. How close is that to the southern basin?
Chair, my understanding is if you, on South Quinsigamond Ave, and you can see the point you go over where it goes into the culvert under there, it goes, once it's on the lake side, it continues through that property, which basically is 1.5 house lots straight to the lake.
Yeah. And there's a little road along it.
Whereabouts is that?
The property next to Ralph Whitcomb, I forgot the fellow whose name it is.
I see, okay, yeah,
It runs along the side of his property,
okay.
yeah.
That's what comes out?
Yep. Yep.
Okay. Any other questions for Tucker?
Self-explanatory, pretty much.
Yeah, made it simple.
Good job, Tucker.
I like it, yeah, very nice. I like the graphics and made it easy to understand.
Glad to help.
Can I
Thank you.
ask one more question?
Yes, of course.
I've noticed that the numbers seem to fall into two distinct categories, very low in, your white areas, extremely high in your orange areas. Do you have a thought or reasons behind that? It's almost like a bimodal distribution rather than a uniform.
Yeah, and it does vary between different sampling points. I'm not sure what would be causing that, to be honest.
Okay. That's good. Everyone all set? Tucker,
Thank you.
Okay, so set the date for our next meeting. I guess everyone's decided the 25th of December is out.
Double time and a half.
So our next meeting would be February, right? So,
February 26th, the fourth Wednesday.
the fourth one?
February
So
26th.
February 26th, okay.
2020.
And then we'll just do the fourth Wednesday, right down through the calendar, unless there's some kind of weird conflict, like the Wednesday before Thanksgiving, or
Yeah.
Halloween night or something. Can we have an open meeting in costume?
We're going from February to Halloween?
No, I'm just saying that we can fill in the Wednesdays after, so we have a schedule in February. for the rest
Yeah,
of
we
the
can send everyone a schedule.
Right.
Just make that up.
Almost never do we deviate from that fourth Wednesday. do we?
No, yeah, we did this one.
Was it last Wednesday, the last Wednesday, is that what we usually
The
do?
last Wednesday, yeah.
Yeah.
I've altered my vacation schedules as a result of that over the years.
Did you take vacation?
I used to take vacations all the time at the end of the month.
Well, the last it used to say the fourth Wednesday and the last Wednesday, but it's two different things.
Yeah.
Right.
That's why.
So we
'Cause
kinda
some-
went to the
there's
last
5
Wednesday.
Wednesdays.
Right. Well, that's right, too, it is yeah, that's right, it should be different.
The Worcester Conservation Commission puts their schedule for their next 10 meetings right on their letterhead.
Really? That's a good idea.
Worcester's usually ahead of the game in most every area that we,
It really is.
Okay.
That's why I like it over there. I like looking at it from my house. I really do. Okay. All right, so, do I have a motion to adjourn?
I present that motion. Motion to adjourn.
For a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Have a nice holiday, or
Thank you so
holidays,
much.
everybody.
Yep.